Привет! Thank you for joining us on this Russian-inspired astrology versus psychology in-depth look at anxiety. This is my anxiety-reducing Russian hat. We are going to deep dive into what the DSM-5 has to say about anxiety, and then pinpoint it in a couple of celebrity charts, and then maybe hopefully come up with some ways that we can help mitigate. So I am not actually going to continue wearing this, but I did tell my daughter that I would put it on for a little while. So, but it's actually
adorable.
giving me a little bit of anxiety to have it over my ears. All right. So we are going to start. I'm going to share my screen. And when I first thought about anxiety, because I usually look at these things, and before I even look at them in the DSM-5, I think, what would make logical sense? And anxiety being the mind, right? The mind going a little haywire, overthinking things, and there's different diagnosis and different, I guess, subsects of anxiety, but we can look at, I'm going to look at just general anxiety disorder, and a lot of this can be extrapolated out for specifics. So, all right, there we go. Yes, anxiety. And so what I would look at would be Mercury or the moon. And mostly I'm looking at Mercury, maybe Uranus too, we can throw in there. And that speaks to that electrical activity, right? It's the nervous system going haywire that we've seen in so many other conditions before, whether it be autism, ADHD. It can just be like an overwhelming sense of maybe having too much to do. So I was thinking Mercury paired with Mars, which is the planet of going and doing and action, being very close to Mercury, which is the higher mind of I got a million things to get done, right? And especially in the neurodivergent minds, where you have that 65% more neurons firing, you add that with something that tells you that got to keep going. It's like that movement. So then the brain never gets to stop. And you can also pair this with the moon. So that's the lower mind in astrology. So if that's always kind of going and worrying, you can see that bringing up anxiety quite a bit. So it does really depend. And I would imagine, depending on which diagnosis people are getting, which subsect, which specialty, is going to depend on the exact things conjuncting it. But for it to get to the point of a disorder, I would expect it to see a pretty tight conjunction or a lot of these aspects talking to each other. So starting off here, I'm just going to real quick jump through what the DSM-5 has to say. It's excessive anxiety and worry occurring more days than not for at least 6 months. So it's not just, oh crap, I have a paper due. It's every day there's this sense of dread on you. About a number of events or activities. So there we see that activity in that Mars energy, such as work or school or performance. Now, Mercury energy can be perfectionism. It carries that Virgo energy to it. So always worrying about, oh, how am I going to do? And is it going to be acceptable? That's what Mercury's good at, and can sometimes go a little overboard with, depending on what's going on with it. So the individual finds it difficult to control the worry. The anxiety and worry are associated with 3 or more of the following symptoms. for more days than not for the past 6 months. So, and interestingly, I'm a little out of breath and a little anxious myself right now as I talk about anxiety. That's very interesting. I wasn't before I started this. Today, as I'm recording this, we have an opposition of Mercury and Uranus in the sky. And so these two octaves of each other and of this nervous, anxious energy when it's in the negative, because all of this stuff has a negative and positive to it. So the negative end of being anxious is that, it can cripple you and make you, go really inward and not want to do anything or get anything done. But if you can get the higher octave of it, that Mars with your Mercury, you can be a fast, smooth talker. You can get a lot of stuff done. So it just depends on where your vibration is, right? So there's restlessness or feeling keyed up or on edge, which would be the Mars. Being easily fatigued, also very Mars energy. Difficulty concentrating or mind going blank. This could also speak to the Uranian energy of just like sudden, because I see that energy as a lightning bolt. So suddenly the lightning strike hits the system and everything fries for a moment and has to kind of be rebooted. So that can be what's happening there. Irritability, if you're anxious all the time, that kind of makes sense. Muscle tension and sleep disturbance. So a lot of these really do scream to be Mars right off the bat. And we'll see in some of the charts that this does tend to be prominent. The anxiety, worry, or physical symptoms cause clinically significant distress or impairment in social, occupational, or other important areas. And it's not attributable to other conditions, is what the other ones basically say. So, that being said, we can dive right into, let's see, who's a good chart to dive into first? Well, why don't we do Stephen Colbert? You guys like Stephen Colbert?
Yeah, that sounds good to me.
Yeah? You like Stephen Colbert?
Yeah, well, a little bit I've seen of him. Yeah.
I used to watch his show all the time. So not so much his new stuff, but so we see with him, you'd be, I was a little surprised, I guess, to see that he had this, but if you look at that higher octave of it, you see that he's decided instead of sit there and be anxious with the energy, to use it to his advantage to get a lot done, right? And here we see that Mars energy coupled with Mercury that I was talking about. And in this case, we've also got Jupiter in there, and Jupiter with things will blow up the energy, so it can make it on the lower octave a little harder to deal with, but on the higher, the more spiritual outlook that you take on things, the broader perspective of, is this something that I really have to be super anxious about? Is it going to matter in the long term? The Mercury energy can be very detail oriented in the moment. That sentence matters. I'm going to spend 3 hours perfecting that sentence. And the Jupiter energy comes in and is like, is it going to matter in the grand scheme of things 5 days from now, 5 years from now, what the sentence is, So they're very much opposite energies that can help balance each other out. So I feel like that's probably what he did in this case. And who else do we have here? So Amanda Seyfried, she was apparently in Les Miserables, however you say that. We've got Mercury here, tightly conjunct Venus in this case, right? So that's, and Saturn. So that's a set upon Mercury of, feeling like it always has to be on top of things, be pleasant, taking into account other people's thoughts on things, because that's Venus, right? And Saturn energy can be very disciplined and organized. So then it's like, okay, I have to get this done to get it done right. And then Mercury is also retrograde in her chart, which intensifies this energy all the more. So she's got a very busy mind in that regard, and always feeling like she's restricted in what she can say, because people probably have in her life reacted poorly, and so she's learned that she has to tamp this down. Of course it's going to give you anxiety. You can't be yourself. That makes sense. So if I was working with her on this energy, instead of just medicating it, which can be a very Saturnian thing, be like, well, we have to control it, so let's put some medication on it and move on. And in fact, when I was looking at her little bio, that stuck out to me, that she's like, I've been on medication for years and I wouldn't change a thing. And so that's a path that she has decided that she wants to go on, and it works for her. But this really ultimately is about her finding her own voice without the need for these artificial methods of control. So in that spiritual sense, that's what I would say to her, if Amanda is watching this video. Well, you do never know, right? And so Adele's interesting, because here we see the Uranus moon conjunction that I spoke of. So that can be a constant worrying out of nowhere, that electrical mind. This is also a very autistic ADHD combination. And then also she's got over here her Mercury straddles, it's exactly 0 degrees here, straddling the line between Gemini and Taurus. So that is, it's a bit demanding on Mercury when it's pulled in the 2 different directions, any planet really, but it's giving it 2 different directives. And so this then coupled with her moon having that Uranian energy on it, I can see that leading to a constant sense of anxiety. So on the one hand, she wants to just go off the cuff, say what she wants, not worry about it, really lead from her emotions. And you hear that in her music, right? And on the other hand, she's got her Mercury, which is our communication, not only our inner thoughts, but how we communicate them. Straddling this very slow Taurus energy, which likes to keep things stable and keeps the status quo, and this very quick Gemini energy, quick thinking, speak first and worry about the consequences later, And so it's this constant push-pull between slow down and speed up. Oh, Linda, I'm going to mute you. There we go. Sorry, that was just a bit too distracting. I'll edit this part out. Let me see here. Who else do we have? All right. So here we see Kendall Jenner, and she has Mercury here conjunct with an energy called Rahu, which is also it's like the north node of destiny. So it's a very demanding energy as well. It's carries kind of that Mars energy that I spoke of I have to do this, I have to go this way, I have to think this way, always on, always doing, always thinking. And then she's also straddling that line between the Scorpio energy and the Libra energy, which is, Libra wanting to say and do things that please other people and take them into account. And then Scorpio, which is kind of doesn't necessarily hold to that as much. It wants to get to the truth of the matter and just say things more bluntly in how they are. So it's constantly worrying, did I say too much here? How are they going to react? And yeah, that kind of gets to you. And in this case, one of the things that she has to master in this life is control over that communication ability and her thoughts on it. So it's a bit of a challenge, and usually our North Node will be. It'll be one of the hardest things for us to do in this life. And then we get Kesha here, who she's got Mercury conjunct her sun here, and that can be very authoritative, or feeling like you have to be the best. I have to shine the best. I have to say the best thing. Again, it's retrograde. So it's immense pressure to be seen as the authority in whatever you say and do. And then her moon is very closely conjunct with Jupiter here, which can expand that sense of worry as well. So the two of these energies then come together, and you can see her getting that diagnosis based on this. Whereas like I would look at it and say, all right, you need to maybe get more of that spiritual essence infused in your life. And that will help bring that anxiety down, especially with so much happening in Pisces for her. Not that I diagnose anybody. This is all for entertainment purposes and so on and so forth. So I think that may be the ones that I brought up for today. Yes. So there we go. I hope that that makes sense. Did you guys have any questions, any insights?
Now, I find it funny that like I was also feeling anxious as we're talking about anxiety. So it's kind of like, it almost makes me wonder like if this just the suggestion of it makes us tense, you know?
Well, yeah, and you can see how like if you just kind of slow down or come at it from a different angle, or is it how much of it is our society, you know, putting ridiculous expectations on people or boxing them in. Like maybe if you have, you know, your Mercury tends to be curiosity too. So I want to go do this, that, and the other thing. And if you have so many other energies being like, no, but you can't though, you know, here's this restriction on that. And so it's going to chafe.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd never really suffered much from anxiety until a couple of years ago when I got beaten up, and then I got PTSD, and the anxiety was pretty. It was hard a little bit for me to deal with because I'd never really. I mean, I've had anxious moments, but not the continual month after month, and what I ended up doing, I think it's just my Taurus stubbornness, was that I wasn't going to let the bitch win for creating me being frightened to go out my front door and getting anxious and like being super hyper alert. I just thought, no, it took me a year, but it was like, no, she's not going to get away with it. That and a pepper spray, because my son got me a pepper spray, so I sort of like that. That allowed me to take my control back. But what I find it interesting is that quite a lot of successful people have these, you know, I mean, because there's a lot of them that have the anxiety, that have the depression in their charts, but they're able to overcome it.
Exactly.
You know, which is really good. Yeah, I think it gives the rest of us hope that's okay, we can actually do it.
Well, yeah, and your example is it's a perfect example of it. You know, you decided that you're going to raise the vibration of it instead of being in fear, which Saturn rules fear. It's like, oh, I'm going to, you know, only concentrate on this. And we saw that prominent a few times. Well, Saturn also rules control. So if you can get in the higher aspect of that and realize that you're the one in control of your mind at the end of the day. So congratulations on that, Linda.
Thank you. And yeah, and it's interesting because I was looking at the charts, and I was like, so and it was to do with it just struck me with ADHD that 2 of my children have been diagnosed as ADHD, and one of them's a Gemini. And I just sort of wondered, and of course that's next door to Cancer, whereas my Libran, she's, unless she's got it really strongly hidden, she hasn't got it. She's really, of my three children, she's the calmest. She has got a temper because she's got red hair, so she has the red head. But I mean, overall, she's the cruisy one. Like it's like, oh yeah, okay, yeah. Because I think it's important for her to be in balance. Because if she goes out of balance, she's not a happy camper. So
yeah. So and Gemini is ruled by Mercury too. So it's always going to that energy with it. And it's very curious. It wants to just go and do, and it doesn't care if it leaves 100 projects half done, because the whole thing was just to do it and experience it. And when they're, not interested anymore, it doesn't hold their interest. Off we go. Evolutionary wise, it's a beautiful thing. Like that's what we're supposed to do. But the society that we've built is just all wrong to foster human ingenuity, And I think that there's growing understanding of this. I've been reading Story or Die recently, and it takes a look at the psychological implications of making children sit there and learn things for a test, and how that it's such a waste of potential when you're just bringing them to kingdom come with useless facts, and I have a 10-year-old, so I see this firsthand all the time. Like just today, she was on the way home. I had a 3-page math test. Like she was all excited about all kinds of other stuff about school today. 3-page math test, and she grumbled and didn't appreciate it. And I'm like, I know, because I know just how much I use dividing fractions in my everyday existence.
Yeah. Remember when we were told don't use calculators because our brains will rot?
Right.
Yeah. I think it's in the best interest of, the powers that be to not have us at our peak potential. Because if we are learning and we are living our best lives, and we don't need guidance anymore or leadership. So not saying I want to be an anarchist. I'm just saying, like, if we were all at our best, we wouldn't need to be guided. And so then there'd be a whole lot of politicians out of a job.
They would have to naturally earn it. They'd have to earn that leadership instead of, by doing instead of dictating. So, yeah. We'll be I think transitioning in the next 20 years, specifically with Pluto and Aquarius, into a more powerful, more empowered society. I think there's going to be a bit of a learning curve, but more often than not now, when I talk to people about school being more like more restrictive and not really about the learning, people get that in a way now that they didn't 20 years ago. I got looked at like I was speaking Swahili, So there's been progress, and I'm hopeful in that. And we can have a generation that's less anxious. So with that, I am going to end this segment on anxiety so that I can start to breathe easy. And I hope that you find something helpful in this. If you have something that you'd like to contribute, something that's worked for your anxiety, or just an insight that you had in your own chart, please post it below. And if you want to join us live every Wednesday at 6:30 Central Time in the Authortunities Hub, I have links below for that. It's a stress-free, algorithm-free environment for creative types to come gather. So you are most welcome there. And this is all also for 11th House Publishing, just to kind of raise awareness of what we're doing. The incorporation paperwork is off to the races. Talk about anxiety inducing. Make sure you check all the boxes and do all the things just so. But we're really excited for that and for what is to come once that comes in. So thank you for joining me, Angela Yuriko Smith.
Yeah, it was a pleasure.
And Linda Blacksheep.
Yeah, I think we've got a bit of quietness. Yes, it was lovely. Thank you.
Yeah, there's a weird lag on my end, so I can work things in edits. So, and until next time, I hope to see you at the next episode, and I will talk to you later.
Bye.
Bye.